And welcome to this episode of the ESG Fitness Podcast. I have Claire with me. Claire, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Apart from, I literally was howling at the episode I just told you about, so I feel like I'm all swollen in the face.
So tell me what were you watching?
A Handmaid's Tale.
And what
It's
was so sad
very.
about it?
They had this episode where they were getting like, I thought it was 50, but it was actually like 86 kids out of Gilead, which is the crazy place. And like, it was this moment where they all were walking off this plane, and some of them found their parents, and it was like literally so emotional. They saved
Aww.
86 kids. They could have all died. Yeah,
Wait,
so
sorry, is
that's
this a true story?
no. It's
Right. Okay.
based on a dystopian a dystopian world.
Right, but you're just
Yeah.
like, oh my god, they could have all died, right? But it is a made up story.
Yeah. I know, but
Yeah.
anything
All
with
right.
kids now, I literally
Cries at kids, any animals, tractors, anything else?
just life.
Uh, Anyway, how's your
How are
week
you,
been?
Emma? Oh, sorry.
Last time Claire asked me how I was, I started crying, but today I'm much better. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I'm glad to hear.
Uh,
That's very good. Oh, you
um,
smile.
so what have you done this week?
Are you sure? Are you sure you're okay?
I probably won't divulge everything on the podcast, but yeah, I'm all right. Yeah,
Okay. Divulge later.
so I shall. Okay, should we get on with the question?
Okay. So, first question. Do you guys have any guidance on how to stay on track with habits like protein, steps, and staying in a deficit when you're without your usual structure and routine? For example, when you're off work for a few weeks, but staying home, so not on holiday.
You need to make a new plan and a new routine for the few weeks that you're off work. Like, I know that seems really, really simple, but like I do this wherever I go. So if I'm traveling a lot, I'm like, okay, I'm only here for 3 days, but this is what these 3 days look like. This is when I can get this in. This is what I can do here. And you just have to plan ahead. But it's going to be different for a couple of weeks. So you just create a new plan around your time off and think about like what you want to do with your time off, what you want those days to look like. But it always kind of comes back to like the same thing of just plan ahead. Like you'll be absolutely fine to continue. I mean, you're going to have more time probably, which sometimes is harder because you have less constraints. A lot of the time people think constraints are a bad thing, but actually they make it a lot easier. Like it's easier to go to the gym when you know you only have a very specific time to go and it's on the way to work and that's part of your routine. Now maybe that you've got that time off, actually might be in some ways harder to do because you're out of that routine. So you need to kind of forge a different routine and create constraints around it based on the other things that you want to do with your time off.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. I've got a client that travels a lot, and that's the one thing I'm like, well, plan. You've been to these locations before, you know where you can, like, which gyms you can go to, like, if you need to do a home workout. Obviously, it's harder if it's like somewhere you've never been, but you can research, but obviously, this is at home, so it's even easier. So it's just about planning and having a backup for each of these situations.
Agree?
Also,
Yes.
do things in the morning. I feel like at my days at home, so my Tuesday, if I'm lazy in the morning for some reason, I feel like my whole day like goes with that level of motivation and energy. Like if I actually get up and go in the morning, I feel the rest of my day goes with it. Which I don't know if that's just me with my fatigue right now with having Tommy, but that's how I feel as well.
Oh, I 100% feel like that as well. If you're productive in the morning, it makes such a big difference. And even this is why we insist on the morning routine. Like, if you're not exercising in the morning, which not everybody likes to do or not everybody can do, if you're not doing that, you still need to start your day with some kind of movement, something positive, because that then translates to the rest of your day. And I do think exercise in the morning is just such a big life hack. Like it improves your mood, it improves your energy, it wakes you up, you feel excited for the rest of the day, you're much more likely to then make positive decisions throughout the rest of the day. This has such a big impact. So if you can do something in the morning, And if you do have that flexibility with the time off, then I would be like prioritizing exercise in the morning.
Yeah. Next question. Hi, lovely coaches. What are the books, sources you would recommend? Sorry, I've got a bit of a nasally nose right now, so apologies if words sound weird. What are the book sources you would recommend for putting gym workout programs together? I'm planning ahead for when I exit Commit to 6 and I won't have access to the app's workouts. Thank you so much.
I don't know any good books on programming, do you?
Like, the thing is I think this was one of my members, Rosie, and I literally, like, for me, I think like there's different levels. Like, I could tell her go and buy the strength book, but the depth it goes into is not something that she would need, and it's quite expensive. Do you know, there's like there are a lot of strength and conditioning and strength training books, but they're expensive and they go into like such deep physiology and biomechanics that you don't really need it. I think just keep following sensible coaches on Instagram is actually going to give you ideas of how to put together workouts a little bit easier. I don't know, is that a silly answer?
I don't think so. I mean, it depends on what your goals are, right? Like if you've got a very specific goal, I would recommend getting a coach that is relevant to that very specific goal. If not, like one, you can keep doing the workouts you've got at the moment for a very long time and still get great results. If you've been on committed for a while, you'll have enough workouts there to kind of keep you going forever if you wanted. But you will start to notice, if you start to look at how we've programmed them, that there are patterns to them. Like over the week, you're hitting all your muscle groups. Like we've done it in certain ways. And this is the other thing that people get really fixated on, is that there's like this perfect way to program. And when you're just trying to train to like be fit, healthy, active, build some muscle, lose some fat, improve your body composition, improve your health, enjoy the gym, you really don't need to do it a specific way. Like sometimes we might do upper lower splits, sometimes we might do push pull legs, sometimes we might do full body, sometimes we might do body part splits because that's how we feel like training. And none of them are like inherently better or worse than others. There isn't this like, this is the only way, this is the best way. You'll get incredible results doing any of them. And you never really have to worry about the best way unless you're doing like elite level powerlifting or elite level bodybuilding or something. If you're just like, I want to go in the gym, enjoy myself, be fit, healthy, active, have a great body, have a great life balance, and you don't need to worry too much about like how perfect that is, but you will start to notice patterns in the way that we program if you start looking at the programs.
I'm going to give a few rules just
Mm-hmm.
to make it easy to create something. So, a session, like in terms of exercises, starting like with your bigger total body movements, like a squat or a deadlift, anything like that. If it's like a total body kind of session, if it's upper body, maybe pull ups or like bent over row or bench press, like the bigger lifts go first, and then put your accessories last, like your bicep curls or like trunk work or single leg work. And then sets and reps, like I always think just stay between, I mean, if you're not going to go for like 1RMs, stay between 5 and 12 reps, 3 to 5 sets. Like you're going to make pretty good workouts with that. Rest 30 seconds to 90 seconds, a little bit more if you need it with strong lifts. That's kind of it, right?
And actually, if you do those, you'll get like
Okay.
90% of the results, and then you can overcomplicate it if you want, but there's absolutely no need to be doing that.
Yeah. Okay. To weigh or not to weigh?
To use the scale, can
Interesting.
you turn whatever that is off? To use the
Yeah.
scales or not to use the scales?
Yeah.
Um, it probably depends on who you are. Look, the scales give you like decent data along with many other things as to whether you're losing fat or not. You absolutely don't have to weigh yourself to lose weight, which I think some people, when you say it, they're like, yeah, that's obvious. Okay, I get it. But a lot of people like subconsciously kind of believe that, like, well, weight loss is my goal, so I need to weigh myself. Well, not really, because actually fat loss is your goal. And that's not directly measured by the scales, and it'll be one of many things that you can be looking at in order to see progress. So we've had clients, especially clients that have done 30 HD, which is 30 days of not weighing yourself and just focusing on ticking the boxes, who have got incredible results and have lost a ton of weight without ever weighing themselves. And one of the reasons that we get people to do that is because the reason that people don't get results, and this is like the overarching reason for everyone not getting fat loss results, is because they give up too soon. Like, that's it. There's really nothing else. Like, everyone is completely capable of losing fat. The reason that they don't is because they give up too soon. Now, one of the key reasons that people give up is because they freak out about the scale weight, which is why we'll often take that away and we'll be like, right, here are your targets for the next 30 days. Don't think about the scales, just focus on these targets, get your head down, tick them off, use us as coaches, use the support, but like focus on that, focus on the thing that's actually going to get you the result rather than like the outcome, well, one of the outcome measures that aren't particularly accurate themselves. Focus on what you can control as opposed to what you can't control. Yeah, I would say if you're someone who freaks out about the scales, then I would stop weighing yourself. If it's often when it trips you up and then you end up either over restricting because you've not lost enough weight in your eyes, or thinking that it doesn't work so you give up, or overeating. And even sometimes people lose weight and then end up overeating because it's like a kind of reward to themselves, and then they're like, oh damn it, that wasn't what I should have done. It's such a like mental barrier for so many people that often taking it away is really useful. Other approach I quite like, less so with the scales, but more like the overarching kind of limiting beliefs, questioning yourself, telling yourself you're going to fail, like talking yourself into giving up, is just to put it on pause for a set amount of time. So I do this a lot with coaches as well, because building your business is also really scary, and there's also a lot of fear of failure or talking yourself out of things or questioning yourself every single time you do a post and someone hasn't signed up yet, and like, will my business ever be a success? And actually, the most fatiguing thing about dieting and the most fatiguing thing about building your business is the constant questioning yourself. It's not actually the actions that you need to do. Like, people aren't fatigued from dieting because of like, I don't know, sticking to their sensible calorie target or their sensible step target or getting 3 gym workouts in a week. It's the constant battle in your head. That's what's fatiguing. And it's much the same with building your business. Like, it's not actually the posting on social media and getting into conversations and building your program. Like, actually, all that stuff can be really fun when you take the pressure off it. Much the same as like going out for a walk and getting to the gym and fueling yourself with healthy, nutritious food can feel really good when you take all the external pressure off it. Which is why I normally suggest that people just put those things on hold. So like, yeah, sure, you can doubt yourself, but not for 6 weeks. And this is what I'd say, if you're about to start Commit to 6, okay, you're definitely going to have like feelings of doubt. So many people, and this is exactly who we want to attract, but so many people that come and do Commit to 6 have tried diets before and it's not worked for them before. Or they've tried and they failed, or they've tried and they've regained the weight. And we want it to be different this time. And what I don't want you to do is fatigue yourself and stop yourself enjoying life and enjoying exercise and enjoying food and enjoying going for a walk and the process of it all, and enjoying like showing up for yourself and backing yourself and doing the things that you know are going to get you the results, because you're constantly talking yourself into failure, or you're talking what's like self limiting beliefs and like getting in your own head about what you can and can't achieve. So put that on hold for 6 weeks. Be like, yeah, you can think about that again, but not for 6 weeks. So anytime that voice in your head comes up, because it will still come up, it'll still be like, oh, you've not even lost weight this week. What was the point in doing all of this? What a waste of time. What a waste of effort. What a waste of money. No, put that on pause for 6 weeks. As soon as it comes up, just be like, yeah, you can think about that in 6 weeks. It's only been 2 weeks. You can't think about that yet. Exactly the same as what I tell coaches. Because it's always every week, oh, should I just give this up? And like, then maybe I should get a normal job and not build my own business. It's like, okay, fine. Let's think about that once you've actually given this a go for 3 months. That's my approach. What would you say, Claire?
I mean, I feel like you've given a very good approach there. I think the point on, obviously people are okay to have like a weight loss goal, you know, like if they want to do that, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that almost, because of previous experiences and like experience from social media, it almost feels like there's timelines associated with, and then I think it becomes not a forever thing. And I think you've highlighted there is like, you really need to focus on enjoying the actions of the everyday and knowing that you walking or going to the gym or eating your fruit and veg, eating your protein, like getting these really good actions in is nourishing your body. And I think focusing on the changes that you can make for life and longevity is like so much to, it's far more superior to that motivation to continue, knowing that all of these actions are great. No matter what the scales say, you are making really good health changes. I think that's huge for that. Like, I've tried not to be going onto the scales back and forth as much as I used to. I don't really have a bad relationship with them, to be honest. But I know when I start weighing myself and tracking, my habits weirdly change, not in a positive way. And that must just be from like previous kind of experience with like bodybuilding and stuff. But focusing on like me today, having like my creatine in the morning with my oats and protein, and then going to the gym later and all of these things and getting my steps, like these make me feel happy every day about what I'm doing to my body instead of looking at the scale and tracking right now. So I think that's huge.
Yeah, and I think once you take the pressure off and you're like, look, whether you've got a fat loss goal or not, whether you're losing weight or not, you still need to fuel yourself well. You still need
Yeah.
to exercise consistently. You still need to be active. Like these things aren't going away. Nothing is going to change there. So sometimes I think that mentality helps as well because it kind of stops you thinking, oh, well, I may as well just give up. It's like, well, no, whether you're losing weight or not, you'd still be doing these things. So why don't you just focus on doing the actions? The outcome will take care of itself. And scales will fluctuate. They will always fluctuate. That's just their nature. Even at maintenance, the scales are going to fluctuate. And if you can't psychologically get over it, just stop looking at it. I don't even have scales here. I don't know what I weigh, but it doesn't really make any difference. It's kind of what you were talking about, like, oh, I don't really weigh myself that much when I do. Like, it's not really a positive thing. It's like, but that data would mean nothing to me now. So, what would be the point in collecting it? And I think sometimes people are still doing that despite the fact it's not telling them anything or it's not even really conducive to the goal that they have. The other thing I'll say about the scales is that for once you've lost quite a significant amount of weight and you're in like a or maybe you haven't lost a significant amount of weight, but when you're in like a healthy weight range, your weight loss isn't really going to be that remarkable week on week, and even like month on month potentially. And when you're trying to also build muscle at the same time, like the scales kind of tell you less and less and less about the progress that you're making. And you'd be much better looking at performance markers, progress photos, measurements if you wanted to, and focusing on that. And then what we always like to do on Commit to Six is a successful week is defined by the actions that you've ticked off, not by what the scale says. Because you could be doing everything exactly right and you might even have a fat loss goal and be in a deficit and have lost fat and the scales might have gone up. So it's not a good predictor short term. And that could be because it's the week before your period and like you normally gain 3 pounds of water retention that week, which is pretty normal for most women. But you've also lost a pound of fat that week because you've been in a deficit. Right now it looks like you've done everything right, but you still gained 2 pounds. So you're in your head, you're like, well, this isn't working. I should give up. Whereas if you hadn't had that data and what you looked back on instead is, I've ticked all these boxes, great. It's going to feel very different. You're going to have a very different interpretation of how that week was.
Yeah. Next question. Are any supplements recommended for weight loss?
I mean, are there any
Mm.
recommended? Yes. Are there any that we would recommend? No, probably not. I think the only thing that I think has like decent evidence that isn't illegal is caffeine. And that will have a slight suppression on your appetite and a slight increase in your thermic effect of, well, I was going to say thermic effect of food, not so much thermogenesis. So you'll be producing a little bit more heat. By the way, this is quite a small effect. It's not like having caffeine is going to magically turn you into this fat burning machine, but you will burn slightly more calories. That's why often you get a little bit hot when you've had some caffeine. And there is an appetite suppressant effect of caffeine as well. So you might eat a little bit less. But that's really, and when you look at most of these like over the counter quote unquote fat burners, like that's really the active ingredient is bit of caffeine in there. What do you think, Claire?
Li- yeah, what you've said. There's none that I would say go and take this, I think, because obviously then that's almost like, hey, I'm taking a magic pill, it's going to help me lose weight, and you're not building the habits that you want to be building. So I think if you're just looking for supplements to support your journey, protein, creatine are probably two of the things like I would say, but they don't help you lose weight. They just help you with energy or with your protein target. But there's not specifically, yeah, anything for weight loss. Next question.
Yeah,
Undoubtedly, the hardest part of fat loss is the maintenance of it long term. I feel that the psychological mindset principles that people who have maintained versus people who haven't would be incredibly important and are interesting to discuss. What are your thoughts on how to maintain? It feels like the biggest hurdle for most people. Thanks.
I agree. I think, having done this for a long time now, the people that tend to maintain their results are the people who accept it as like complete lifestyle change. Like the point is, and this is such an obvious thing to say, but it is quite important to talk about, is that most people will start a diet as a short-term thing. Like, when is the end of your diet? Now, of course, there will be technically the end of your fat loss phase of your diet, right? And then you're going to come back up to maintenance calories, which might not actually, by the end of your diet, be that much of an increase from your deficit calories, depending on your size and how much fat you've lost and the size of your deficit. Anyone I know who's been able, like the clients that we've had that have maintained, have found a way to enjoy it, have seen the huge benefits, even if they don't enjoy it all the time, right? Like I don't even enjoy exercise all the time, but I see and feel the huge benefits to consistently doing it, and they don't resent it. I think that's a key thing. It's like they now see it as something that they get to do because they love themselves, because they want to fuel themselves, because they deserve to have a happy, healthy life, because they see the positive it can have in the other areas of their life, as opposed to where a lot of people come from, which is like they resent the fat loss process. They resent, quote unquote, having to stick to a diet, as opposed to saying, I'm choosing to stick to this because it makes me feel good. I think that's a huge mindset shift. Now it's something that you want to do and that you get to do versus something that you feel like you have to do. And when it's something that you have to do, you're always at some point going to resent it. And as soon as you start resenting it, then that's kind of like a downhill spiral of like, you're not going to stick to it long term because you're always going to be looking for a reason to quit. What do you say?
I think apart from like everything that you've said, I think like you'll maybe notice a few other things, like different hobbies that these people pick up, like active hobbies, and it's things that they're enjoying whilst still moving more. Like, do you know, little things like that? That I think is probably the only thing I would add to it is they choose to be active in different situations. And I don't know, does that sound silly? Like, for example, like starting up, like you started, is it paddle you started?
No, I gave that up quite quickly. But
Or did
I
you?
think more
Oh,
to the
right.
point, rather than like conscious activity, it's things like, well, I wouldn't even think about like as a good example of this, right? Anyone in London who uses like the City Mapper app, right, which kind of tells you like if you're like, oh, I need to get home from somewhere, I'll give you like all the options because there's always like a bus, a tube, a bike, a tube and a bike, a bus or whatever, right? There's loads of options. Um, and there are ones where it would be like, oh, you could do absolutely no walking, and then you could get this tube, but you'd need to change three times. But it means that like you'll only have to walk for 2 minutes out of the whole thing, which obviously is important for some people if they're less able to walk. But then there'll be another option that's like, oh, it's a 10-minute walk each side of this tube, but you're only getting on one. Or you could get a bus this way or whatever. I think it's just like the preset to go towards like, oh, okay, that seems easy. Then I don't have to change. And also I'm going to get a bit of a walk in as well. Whereas some people would
Yeah.
go for like just this option with like loads of changes potentially. I think it's more that kind of thing. It's like, oh, well, if it's less than 20 minutes, I just walk. I wouldn't even think about getting on some kind of public transport, driving or whatever.
Yeah. It is, and it's subconsciously you're doing it as well. You're not even making yourself do it.
Hmm.
But I think with like that active, I think it's like I know, like, because I've done sport my whole life, being active is just something I enjoy. And I think it is like what you said, it's like finding things that you just enjoy that don't make it feel like I have to do this. Like sometimes you will have days like that. Like my training program right now for High Rocks, I love it, but there's some days where I'm still like, oh, I don't want to do that row. Like, but I've got a goal and I can't wait for it. So I think that's,
When
I
is
think
your high rock?
something March. So giving myself a good amount of time.
Okay, good, good, good.
Copenhagen.
It's so cool. Have you been before?
You know, to Copenhagen, I did like a school exchange when I was in like 15 or something, but I can't remember. We were there for a day. I can't remember a lot of it apart from we went to a sex museum.
Oh, nice. Yeah, as you do
Yeah.
with young children.
I just remember walking about. All I remember seeing is like dildos and like, I don't know. So obviously at that age, you're kind of like, wow.
Lots of
Yeah.
phallus symbols. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, me and Ruth are doing it. You could come and watch.
I know. Um,
Yeah.
well, I've never been to Copenhagen.
I mean, we're going from the
Isn't
Wednesday to the Sunday. We're doing the High Rocks on the Friday.
it quite cold in March?
Yeah, so we didn't know this. I didn't really think actually, but when I looked at the weather, it's about 10 degrees or something, so it's chilly-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cold. Yeah. All right, next question.
So apologies for my nose. I'd love to hear tips for being more adaptable but not being derailed when out of normal routine and with less control over how to eat and spend your time, whether that's because of being away or e.g. having visitors staying.
I think one, I love this approach, and it's something we always talk about, is like, just remember you are very adaptable. And there's always a decent option, and you can always pick it, and you can always not eat like the portion size that you're given. You know that you might not always be able to choose exactly what you can eat, but you can choose how much of it that you consume. And just a reminder of your goals. The thing I would suggest is just taking a bit of a pause before you make any choices. And this, I don't mean like going away for 30 minutes to decide what you want to do, but just instead of just responding to something, like if someone asks you for um I don't know, like if you want a mince pie and you're just like, yeah, like maybe just like think for a second, like, do I actually want this right now, or would I prefer to have one like after dinner or something? So I think the whole like pause and respond instead of reacting makes a really big difference. And yeah, like I think just knowing that you are adaptable, like you are, like any choice that you make, and you also have to own the choices that you make, like the choices, own the action, own the consequences of them, if that's slightly more calories, but like but when I say that, I don't mean like that in a negative way. I just mean own it and enjoy it, as opposed to feeling like it's happening to you, because a lot of people fall into this kind of victim mentality of like, well, I couldn't control that. It's like, no, you can control all of it, you control everything, but it's up to
You have a
you to
choice.
decide what you want to make.
Yeah. You always have a choice. You can do it, which is no, there's nothing wrong with eating or drinking something that you want to drink, but you can also say, you can say no, do you know? It's not, I think the guilt is more internal than what someone is going to feel of you saying no to a mince pie.
Okay, next one.
Tips for getting rid of previous diet rules which have stayed stuck even though you are not following that approach anymore. I think this comes with lots of conversations with the coach about these rules that you have, but also following this new journey, potentially the results that you will start to get from not employing these rules will hopefully start to override them.
I love that. Like, you look, you now have proof, right? So, say one of these rules is like you shouldn't eat carbs after 6 p.m. or something, but what you've been doing is having your dinner at 6:30 that includes carbs. and you notice that you're still getting results. So, and do you know what? These voices sometimes still do come up, even though you're like, oh, why is it so irrational? Or normally, I don't know, I used to fast until 11 a.m. and now I'm having breakfast. And I know logically that these calories are exactly the same, whether I have them at 10 a.m. or after 11 a.m. or 9 a.m., 8 a.m., whatever. It doesn't really matter what time I'm having them, but it's still kind of coming in your head. Then just give yourself that proof, exactly what Claire said. Like, I wouldn't get so worried or annoyed at yourself that like it still comes up now and again, because you're normal. That's normal human nature. Even Claire's like, obviously completely understands the scales, but she's like, yeah, actually sometimes when I do weigh myself, like I start to do things that like aren't really in line with my goals and don't really make much sense, and it's not totally logical. And all you need to do is catch yourself doing it and then give yourself proof that you don't need to be doing that. Much like with these food rules, whether it's certain times of eating, whether it's eating carbohydrates, which is often a thing, like if people have gone low carb or they think they've had certain foods as like quote unquote bad foods. Okay, well, prove to yourself that you can have a croissant in the morning before you were meant to open your fast, and it's high carb, and look, you could still be in a deficit at the end of the day and lose fat, and that you are doing that consistently and that you are getting those results. And then you're showing like proof to that limiting belief. And that will go over time. But if it's something that's been ingrained in you for a long time, don't expect it to just change overnight. It's much like when we work when we work with people on their relationship with the scales, like it would be great if just us explaining them once and being like, oh, look, your weight can fluctuate independently of whether you're losing body fat or not. And people are like, oh, great, no issue with the scales anymore. That's literally never happened, right? You need to repeat it again and again and give people evidence again and again. And over time, and normally what happens is you look back and then you're like, oh, that really doesn't fuss me anymore. Like, I really don't care what I weigh, or I haven't weighed myself in ages, not even thought about it, or I weighed myself last week and I was a bit heavier than I thought I was, but why do I care? Because I feel great and I look great and all my clothes fit and um, I've got high energy and I like the way that I look. So why would I care what the scale says? But it takes time to get there. So don't beat yourself up about like still having those feelings.
I think if you have a coach that's really supporting you as well, they will educate you as well. Do you know? Like, so if you, and it might not even just be, well, yeah, you can eat carbs. Like, obviously, that's not really education. Um, if you want them to provide evidence, like whatever you need to help you overcome that rule that is stuck in your head, like you should get that, like there is evidence out there to support claims of most things. So if they can help fish through that and source the information to help you read more around whatever topic it is, I think that's quite important too.
Yeah, like here's so many studies showing that people lose fat on high carb diets.
Mm,
There you go.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
should we do one more?
Next one. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, why the day after a binge does it feel like wading through mud when going for a walk? What's the physiological reason behind being so sluggish? Or is it actually psychological that you know you fucked up? Oh, am I allowed to say fuck? And this is the
Yeah, you
knock
are.
on, and this is the knock on effect.
What do you think? Because I don't know that I've felt like that.
Um, I I don't think physiologically there's going to be some reason to feel so sluggish. If you've eaten more food, that's almost like, what athletes used to do, like a carb load before a race. So like that can't really be like physiological. I think it's probably more of a psychological response and you're feeling a bit down for what's happened. But also like people make mistakes, and I know that's it doesn't really heal like the effect of what's happened the day before, but all you can do in that day is make the right decisions for you going forward. So there's definitely, I don't think anyway, unless someone can come to me and give me a physiological reason, I think that's a psychological response. um do you have anything?
Yeah, I think it's probably psychological. Sometimes it's things like sleep if you haven't slept as well after, or if you were like eating late at night and then you didn't sleep as much. I think a huge element is mood, because you're going to be feeling a bit like crap about yourself potentially, or you're beating yourself up for what happened. Straight after,
Yeah.
it might be more like a bit of food coma, like, you know, you eat a lot on Christmas Day and then you're just like, "Bleh," like feel pretty
Yeah.
rubbish after that. Um, but I think if it's the next day, and yeah, it's probably more like your own mood, your own psychology. And also it might depend on like what you were eating, you know, because if you've been binged on like kind of rubbishy foods that don't make you feel particularly good, or that are very high in salt, or like that might also give you a bit of water retention, make you feel quite sluggish. And maybe you didn't eat many like good, healthy, nutritious foods that the day before as well. That could all have like a bit of an impact. But I do think it's probably mostly psychological.
Yeah.
Right,
Cool.
should we do the next one?
Okay. I've read that your body doesn't burn any fat when you've had alcohol. Is that true?
This goes around on social media loads because there's like a small element of truth in it. So when you have
Yeah.
alcohol in your body, it reduces, or it stops fat oxidation, so fat breakdown. This is the same as true as if you eat carbohydrates, it will also turn off fat oxidation. The reason for that is that alcohol is an energy source, much like carbohydrates are an energy source. And so why would you be breaking down your stored energy when like new energy is coming in, right? That wouldn't make any sense, right? Kind of think of it as if you've already got a glass full of water, so if more water, no, that analogy doesn't work, ignore that. But the point being, if you've already got like new energy coming in, you don't want to break down more energy and then you've got like too much energy flying around in your blood, right? So that's why alcohol does like technically turn off fat breakdown, but that doesn't mean that it stops body fat loss in a deficit. Like eating food will also turn off fat breakdown, because that's actually a really healthy process. And actually, that's one of the processes that goes wrong in type 2 diabetes, where you have this high level of blood glucose, which is toxic. And that's the hallmark of type 2 diabetes. But one of the issues that people actually explains like the vast majority of the increase in blood glucose levels is that in a normal, healthy, functioning person, when you eat food, your own carbohydrate breakdown to produce glucose for the blood is turned off, because when insulin is present, it switches that off. And again, insulin gets a bad rep for that as well, because it's like, oh, well, if there's high insulin levels, then it stops fat breakdown. It's like, yeah, that's the whole point, is that you're going to stop the breakdown of your own energy because there's already energy available. What was my point on that? Anyway, it
Um,
basically, I think my point is it's a good thing, but it's not going to stop you losing body fat if you're in a calorie deficit. Um, so yeah, it's the same as like if you were eating anything really. Alcohol will not stop you losing fat. And most people who say this don't really understand the difference between body fat loss at the end of the day and fat oxidation rates short term.
so I remember this would be in about 2000. That's really creepy. Tommy's toy just went off. It's switched off.
Oh,
Anyway,
what? No one's there.
oh my God, no one's there. Um, it's so creepy. It's like sometimes when I
Go.
sit there and he looks behind me and he's like, "Hiya," I'm like, "Oh my God," like no one's there, and he does it. It's really creepy.
Oh my god, that is a bit creepy.
Anyway, yeah. So I always remember this fact from when I was like studying in Canada, like doing my physiology. And I don't know if I've remembered it right, which could maybe potentially be one of the reasons for this thought that people are having, is that your body, when you've had alcohol, prioritizes burning that. One, you said for energy because it's another fuel source, but two, because it's potentially a poison. So it wants to get
No,
rid
no,
of
that's
it.
true.
And
Yeah,
okay, so it wants to
yeah.
filter
You
it
want your
fast
body.
as well.
You want like it's. This is what I mean. Like it is a good thing because you want your body to get rid of. You want your body to metabolize alcohol over other fuel sources because it is toxic in high levels, right? Like it is a poison technically. So you do
Yeah.
want your body to be breaking that down, and you're right. Like your body will prioritize it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that memory. That's good.
I think that's where people get confused as well. It's like, oh, well, it'll, your body will only burn alcohol and it won't be burning fat anymore. And it's less kind of like as clear cut as that. And also, it doesn't really matter if at the end of the day you're still in negative energy balance. That energy has to come from somewhere. It's going to come from your stored energy, which is primarily going to be fat stores.
Yes.
Right then.
Cool.
Okay, that was great. Thanks.
It was great. Thank you.
If you are interested in signing up to the next intake of Commit to Six, we start on Monday, which is very, very soon. So get yourself signed up at esgfitness.co.uk/commit, and we will see you there. Bye.
Okay, I've